y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a really informal video. I just got off work and I didn't really feel like getting super ready, but I really wanted to do a fun video on 5 books that will get you out of a reading slump, or 5 books that I feel will make you like or love to start reading again, or to just start reading in general. This year I've really been into reading. I mean, I've always really been a huge reader. Growing up, I loved reading. That was like my thing. I loved language arts. And but you know, over the years, obviously when I was in college, I didn't really read that much because I didn't have a lot of time. But this year, like back in June, or I guess last year, in June, I just got into reading, and I have read so many awesome new books, and I've really just fallen in love with reading again. And so I just wanted to share some of my recommendations of books that I just still think about all the time. I'm gonna be rereading them. I have a lot, but I just wanted to give you 5 because I felt that that was, I don't know, a pretty good number. And these books, I would say, are all 5-star books that I read last year. So I really do recommend them a ton. And I always recommend them to people who always say like, well, I wanna read, but I just don't know what to read. So yeah, I will preface this by saying that I really basically only read like contemporary romance novels. Like that's just the kind of genre that I like to read. I have read other genres, but really that's kind of what I stick in, you know? So yeah, I just wanted to give you my recommendations, and hopefully you pick up some of these books. Kind of sucks because I don't actually have the physical copies of any of these books because I read them on my Kindle. So I'll just put up the picture up here, and yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first book I'm going to recommend is by the Queen herself, Colleen Hoover. And before I tell you this book, I will say that about 3 years ago, I picked up a Colleen Hoover book, All Your Perfects. If you haven't read that one, stop what you're doing, go read that first. I didn't put it in this video because I feel like everyone basically talks about that book and most people have already read it. But if you haven't, love that book. That's actually the book that got me out of a reading slump, and I still rate that as like probably one of my favorite books, but I didn't want to include that one in this video. But overall, Colleen Hoover is literally my favorite author. She's okay, I've never met someone who can write romance and then have these awesome plot twists and just have you so invested in her writing. And so yeah, anything with Colleen Hoover is good. Okay, so the first book I want to recommend is Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover, obviously. Okay, so Ugly Love follows Tate and Miles. Tate is a nurse, and she is moving in with her older brother, who is an airline pilot, and Miles is also an airline pilot. He's also Tate's brother's best friend and his neighbor. So the day that Tate moves into the apartment, she encounters Miles. That's the first time they meet. This is at the very beginning of the book. And he is blackout drunk on her brother's front door. And her brother is out of town because he's a pilot and he is at work. So she lets Miles come into her brother's apartment, helps him onto the couch, and lets him crash there. But throughout the night, she's, obviously taking care of him, and he's crying out for a girl named Rachel, calling her Rachel. And so she's like, I don't know, maybe he got his heart broken. She goes to bed, and the next day, he goes to her door and is like, did we hook up? Where's my phone? Why is my hand hurt? Because she accidentally slam the door on his finger. That's a whole other thing. But basically they just don't hit it off very well at the beginning. And throughout the story, you start seeing that even though they don't have the best relationship, there's one thing that they definitely do have, and that is an attraction to each other. And so as the story progresses, obviously they want to hook up, and Miles tells Tate, hey, I don't want a relationship. I'm never going to get in a relationship again. I like you. I think you're attractive, but it will only be just that, us hooking up. And he asks Tate if she's okay with that. And Tate thinks like, I'm a nurse, like I'm going to grad school. I don't have a time for a relationship. So she decides that it's okay for them to just be hooking up, and the brother doesn't know and all that. But obviously throughout the story, we find out that there is a reason why Miles does not want to ever be in a relationship ever again. We find out who Rachel is, and it is such a beautiful, tragic story. I love this book because it alternates between present with Miles and Tate, and then the past, which is only Miles telling his story leading up to us discovering why he never wants to be in another relationship. But it is just a beautiful story of love, but also there's a lot of sadness and grief. And overall, I loved this book. The plot twists were crazy, but just Miles and Tate together, just so good. 5 out of 5 stars. Trust me, you have to read it. You're gonna love it. So that is my first recommendation. Okay, so the second book that I am recommending is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I know a lot of people know Taylor Jenkins Reid because she wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I've never read because it just doesn't grab my attention, but I know everyone loves it. And then Daisy Jones and the Six, which is another one that I've never read. But One True Loves is actually one of her older novels, and I recently picked it up and I just fell in love. So One True Loves follows a girl named Emma Blair, and she marries her high school sweetheart, Jesse. So her and Jesse have this beautiful life together. They leave their hometown and they travel the world. You know, they're really just doing everything to further their career, travel, and just live this really fun and exciting life. But on their first year wedding anniversary, Jesse actually is in a helicopter accident and he is pronounced dead. So again, not a spoiler, that is basically the premise of the book. So he goes missing, and just like that, you know, after a couple of obviously weeks and months, he's pronounced dead. So Emma moves back home to her hometown where she never wanted to live after graduating high school. She wanted to obviously travel the world, and she, wants to put her life back together. So she starts working at her family's bookstore. Her mom and dad own a bookstore. And she runs into an old friend of hers named Sam. So it is kind of, walks you through her grief and then her meeting Sam and falling in love with Sam. But this is like the main plot twist. Again, this isn't a spoiler. This is on the back of the book, so you can look it up. One day she gets a phone call and finds out that Jesse was found alive and he is coming back. And she is now engaged to her old friend Sam, and she's in love with him. So when Jesse returns, he doesn't know. I think it's been 3 years, and I think he's not 100% sure, about her life now. So he doesn't know that she is engaged, but his parents do. And so she's obviously, that was the love of her life, but she is now in a new relationship and she's very in love with Sam. And it is really just this honestly heartbreaking but beautiful story of her trying to figure out who she's basically going to pick and who she's basically going to continue to love. And she's really trying to figure out who her one true love is. And it's just, it's so beautiful because you see obviously the pain of both characters, Sam and Jesse. Her and Jesse had a great marriage, but her and Sam are perfect together as well. And she's really just trying to figure out who she is and who she wants to be with now, after experiencing everything she experienced when Jesse obviously died, and how she picked herself back up and who she is now. And so it's just beautiful. And like, the ending is even more beautiful. This book has one of my favorite quotes, and I'm going to read it to y'all because I feel that it doesn't spoil anything, but I loved, when I closed this book, when I tell you, I literally turned to my husband and I was like, that was so beautiful. You just have to read it and listen to the story, and it's just so good. I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So good. Yeah. So that is my second book. Okay, so my third book is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I freaking loved this book. This is one of the first books I picked up in the summer, and it was a great summer read. It didn't have like too much summer vibes, but it was just a good, like a lighthearted read. But basically, People We Meet on Vacation follows Poppy and Alex. Poppy is a fashion or like a travel blogger, and Alex is her best friend. They met in college, and they are the complete opposite. Like, Poppy is such a fun, outgoing travel blogger. Like, she has this super awesome and fun life, and Alex is a very reserved guy. He wears khakis. She travels the world and lives in New York, and but they are best friends. They met in college, and they have remained best friends because they actually go on vacation every summer together to these really fun and extravagant places because Poppy's job allows for her to bring along a friend while she goes and travels and then blogs about it. So at the very beginning of the book, we find that Poppy is kind of going through a little bit of a crisis because she doesn't feel happy because Alex actually is no longer in her life because of something that happened between them. They kind of had a little bit of a falling apart, but we don't know why. And at the very beginning of the book, she says she wants to reach out to him to, just to see how he's doing. So she actually reaches out to Alex and asks him to take a vacation with her again. And he actually agrees because he has to be in that area where she wants to go for a wedding. So they are going to meet up again. And after not having seen each other or really spoken in the past 2 years. And this is Poppy's way of trying to reconnect with Alex and just have him back in her life because she loves him as a friend. And you'll see more about Poppy's reasoning for asking him to come on vacation with her. So she, during this time, is trying to fix everything and really rekindle their friendship by, planning a bunch of activities for them and all that. And Alex is just the best book character ever. Like, Alex as a character is what I love in books. He's very serious, kind of quirky, but he's very loving, and just everything about him as a character and everything about Poppy as a character just really drew me in. And the book and the premise of it, at first I was like, okay, that just sounds cheesy, but it wasn't, okay? Like, it was just so freaking good. And they're basically both are not disclosing what happened between them to have them drift apart and not really be best friends anymore after so many years. But as the book goes on, you start realizing during the vacation that they are on what happened, what caused everything, and just overall the book follows them and their story together as friends and then as, whatever else they become. So I loved it. I just thought it was just a cute little love story. And really what drew me into this book was Emily Henry's writing is so good, and she really just makes the characters that she writes about so likable. So yeah, I loved this book and I definitely recommend it. It is a really good, little book to read on vacation or on the beach because it is alternating. So that's one thing I liked about it. It talks about Poppy and Alex in present day. So them trying to rekindle their friendship during their vacation that Poppy asked him to go on. And then it alternates back to the past and all the trips that they took leading up to the very last one when they stopped talking. And then the revelation at the end is just 10 out of 10. Chef's kiss. So that is the next book. All right, so the fourth book I'm going to recommend is the only YA book that I have actually really read. I don't really read a lot of YA books, but this one was all over the place. Everyone recommended it, so I wanted to also, jump on that bandwagon and read it too. And that is A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tillie Cole. This book will, if you don't want to cry like throughout the whole book, don't read this book. If you don't want to feel emotional, don't read this book. Like, this is not that book that is lighthearted. This one and Ugly Love, I would say, are the two that just just hit me in this. Actually, this one, Ugly Love, and then One True Loves. But honestly, A Thousand Boy Kisses was just such a tearjerker. Don't take it on an airplane because it will make you cry. But anyways, A Thousand Boy Kisses follows Poppy and Rune. Poppy and Rune have been inseparable since they were 5. Rune moved from Norway to Poppy's neighborhood in Georgia. And ever since then, they were inseparable. They were always together. And now they're, I think, around 15 or 16, and they are dating. And so they are just the cutest couple ever. Rune and Poppy love each other so much. They are like the envy of their high school because Rune is this beautiful guy from Norway, and he loves Poppy so much, and she is a cello. She plays the cello. I don't know how to say it, but so they're just the perfect couple together. And then we find out very early on in the book that Rune's dad's job is having them move back to Norway. So their world is literally like crushed. They Rune is beside himself. He's angry. He hates his parents for making him have to move back to Norway and leave Poppy, and Poppy's so heartbroken. But they decide that they're going to stay together because Rune's dad says that it's not forever, that they will eventually move back to Georgia. They don't sell their house, but they do have to go for some time. So they decide that they were going to stay together. So Rune moves back, and Poppy and him still talk for a couple of months, and then all of a sudden, Poppy goes dead silent. She doesn't speak to him ever again. He tries contacting her. He tries to figure out where she is he tries to ask all their high school friends, and he finds out that Poppy has also moved, and no one knows where. So it's so sad, but later, so time goes on, and Poppy returns to her hometown, and she finds out that Rune is actually moving back home. And when Rune moves back home, he's a completely different kid. He's not this loving, guy that he once was. Now they're seniors in high school, and he comes back and he's this bad boy. He smokes cigarettes. He wears black leather jackets, and he's just a bad boy. And he and Poppy see each other for the first time, and he just completely ignores her because he's angry at her for just leaving him. So then we find out why Poppy stopped talking to him, and from that point on in the book, it becomes even more heartbreaking, and we follow Rune and Poppy as they navigate what Poppy told him. And I don't want to go into too much of this book because I don't want to give it away, but it is just such a beautiful book that really showcases two true soulmates and two people who love each other so much, going through something extremely difficult, and finding the light during a terrible time. And so I loved this book. Again, it is a YA novel. It is very, it's a tearjerker romance, but it is for young adults, but I still loved it, and I'm 30 years old, and I would definitely pick this book up. It will have you just crying and just contemplating life and how you see life. And so yeah, I loved this book, and I definitely recommend it. Okay, so the last book I'm gonna recommend is a little bit lighter. It's not sad or anything, and that is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. So The Love Hypothesis follows a third-year PhD student named Olive and a professor that everyone freaking hates named Adam, and he's a professor at Stanford and she's a PhD student at Stanford. And basically the book starts off with Olive trying to convince her best friend that she is over her ex-boyfriend because her best friend actually likes her ex-boyfriend, but Olive does not feel any type of way about it. She's like, I didn't even really like him. You guys both have a much better connection than he and I did. Just date him. But her best friend just will not date him because she just thinks it's girl code and everything. So Olive makes up this lie that she actually is dating someone else. And so on the day that she tells her best friend that she's going on a date with her new man, she isn't, because she doesn't have anyone new. She just wants her best friend to be happy. And so she goes into the lab where she's working on her research for her PhD, and she sees her best friend walking in, and so she basically grabs the first guy that she sees and she just kisses him. So when she realizes who she kissed, she's basically mortified because she realizes that she has kissed the professor that everyone in the PhD department hates, and his name is Adam. So once she kind of explains to Adam why she had to kiss him, he's like, well, why don't we basically fake date? So this definitely has the fake dating trope, and Adam really wants to fake date Olive because he doesn't want his funding to be cut from Stanford because they think he's kind of like a hot commodity and he's just gonna dip out, and so they are thinking of cutting his funding. And it's actually really interesting because you get to learn a lot about STEM and science within the book, because it's all based off of science and people getting their PhDs from Stanford, and it's biochemistry, I don't even freaking know. But yeah, it's just nice to hear that life, and I really felt like I was at Stanford also as a PhD student. So they end up deciding to start fake dating, and it really just goes into their relationship as they progress from complete strangers to somewhat of friends, and then they actually have to go to this, I think it's like it's a science conference where they are both presenting, and there's a big plot twist because something happens to Olive, and Adam doesn't really know what's going on, and he's there for her, but then they kind of, go their separate ways, and it's really just a lighthearted, fun read. It has the fake dating trope. It has the grumpy sunshine. Adam Carlson's the grumpy sunshine, and Olive is this just like fun, happy girl, but she also has a lot of trauma in her life because she hasn't had an easy childhood, and they kind of, cover that in the book. It also talks about, what I really liked is it also highlights work sexual harassment, basically, and it kind of tags on that, and we see how that plays out. But basically, it is just so good. It's just a fun read, to be honest, and I also can't say much about it. It's basically them fake dating. Y'all know how that trope goes, but it's so good. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing style as well. I read this book in like 2 days because it was just that good. But again, just a lighthearted and fun read, which is exactly what you need whenever you are in a reading slump. But the love stories in all of these books are just so good and like genuine and wholesome, and that is what I think will get someone out of a reading slump. So anyways, those are the top 5 books that I recommend in order to get you out of a reading slump or just to get you to start reading again. I apologize if I didn't explain these the best. I don't think I'm really good at explaining books. I just feel it in my head, like I know what to say, but I don't know if I'm expressing how good I genuinely feel that these books are. So I would love to hear any of your recommendations of some of your favorite books. Like I said, I love reading. I am currently reading, what am I currently reading? Oh, Twisted Games by Anna Huang. It's okay, I don't love it that much, but I'm waiting on the new Colleen Hoover book, which is about to ship, and I'm so excited because it comes out on January 18th, and I already pre-ordered it. So yeah, I will be so excited to read that. So yeah, if you have any books that you want to recommend, please leave them in the comment section below, and let me know if you are someone who likes to read or doesn't like to read, because I'm telling you, if you read these books, you might really start reading. And honestly, it's just nice to not have to be on social media all the time and just get trapped in a world that isn't this world, So anyways, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will be back with another video very soon. Bye.